Let's talk about defense mechanisms. It's something that we as humans use at least once in our lives, whether when it comes to when we disagree with something, come face to face with something difficult, or just going through a difficult time in our lives. All of us humans have used a defense mechanism at some point. They protect our minds from coming face to face with a dissonance or an internal conflict. If you follow Sigmund Freud, and he teaches the psychology of how childhood experiences can develop into adulthood experiences, you know that defense mechanisms play a role in that teaching, but we're not going to get into that today. That will be for a later video. Welcome back to another video, guys. As you can see, my hair is kind of puffed up there. My name is Connor Bickelmeyer, and this is a series on all things psychology, wisdom, and everything in between. If you like this style of video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We are almost to 400 subscribers. I can't even believe I'm saying that. The last video was the best performing one in the series, and it was in this style where I am sitting here and just talking to you, and you guys really seem to like that, so I'm going to continue doing that going forward. Again, thank you for supporting, thank you for subscribing if you already are. If you are new here, you can subscribe if you want to. I'm not going to force you, but it'd be nice to have you on for the journey. Now, let's get into the video. The first defense mechanism is suppression. Suppression is a defense mechanism where the person actively acknowledges a dissonance in the mind and uses different techniques to suppress the conflict that they are facing. That conflict can be taken away through escapism, it could be drugs, sex, video games, really anything that helps the person get whatever's going on in their head out of their mind. It can be something like you thought you said was weird that day, a tough conversation, or just something that is bothering you from the past. While it is totally normal for people to use suppression from time to time, I mean, you can look at people staring at their phones nowadays, suppression will eventually outweigh itself and will need to be addressed. Number 2 is repression. Now, repression is different from suppression in the sense that the person is trying not to think about it, but they're trying to push the conflict that's going on in their heads out of conscious awareness. You might see this defense mechanism being used in people who have possibly been molested as a child, and they are doing everything they can to bury it and even forget that it even happened. The main thing that the mind is trying to do is to completely forget. It doesn't even want it there, as if it never happened. However, people who use this mechanism will find that they feel often emotionally stuck. Number 3 is projection. Now, projection, you see this in a lot of abusive relationships, and to be honest, you see a lot of defense mechanisms in abusive relationships. But this is when somebody takes an unacceptable impulse and they throw it onto another person. For example, this can be somebody who's insecure calling somebody else insecure because they can't face it on their own. Or somebody who is stupid calling the other person stupid when they can't come to the fact that they are in the wrong. It is basically a person not taking accountability for one's own actions and emotional well-being. Instead, they are taking this thing that they are feeling and then they are putting that emotional responsibility on another person. And the projector feels better about this because the problem now is not their own, it's somebody else's. Number 4 is denial. This one is pretty straightforward. When we are faced with very difficult information, we at first may deny it. And this can be something like the death in the family or being in a car accident or something like that. It's a normal reaction to deny something traumatic has just happened or something horrible had just happened. But people who are in denial all the time believes that they are right no matter what. And this, I think you can see how it becomes a problem. They do this because it helps them avoid feelings of anxiety and depression and any other negative emotion that they come across. It is a clear sign of insecurity and honestly being out of touch with reality. Number 5 is reaction formation. Now this one is weird, and no offense to women or anything, but I think I see this more often in the media as far as like women's movies, that You see it a lot more often in women's culture. It's when a person takes one's true feelings about something and expresses the exact opposite of it. It can be something like secretly hating a friend or being happy whenever somebody gets a job that you're going for when you're actually jealous. I think a perfect example of this is the movie Mean Girls, and you see that the main characters, I forgot what their names are, but there's one particular scene in there where the new girl and the mean girls are talking. Somebody walks by with a skirt on, and one of the mean girls, I think it's Regina George, the girl walks by and Regina George comments on how pretty it is, and when the girl walks away, she's like, that is the ugliest dress I've ever seen. And this is a perfect example of what reaction formation looks like. Now, why do people do this? It's to avoid feeling their actual feelings, is that right? It's pretty easy. Or should I say easier or not? Number 6 is rationalization. Oh yeah, this one is the cheater's best defense. You know that friend who makes terrible decisions all the time, but they try to make it sound better than it actually is every time you ask them why they make the decisions they do? This is a perfect example of rationalization. People who cheat on their spouses or their girlfriends, boyfriends, they use this in order to justify their ungodly actions. Or at the very best, make a case. But it never works out because it misses one important ingredient, and that is accountability. Number 7 is displacement. You know the story of the overworked dad who comes home and yells at his wife? Well, this is a perfect example of displacement. Now, there's a few different factors that play into distinguishing displacement from projection. Now, displacement is when somebody is taking in negative emotions from somebody else and displacing the emotions onto another person that has nothing to do with it. Projection is when you're taking your own insecurities or negative feelings that you're feeling on your own simply from a personality standpoint and projecting it onto somebody else to feel better about yourself. Displacement is basically venting everything, all your frustrations toward another person out on the wrong person. That's basically the distinguished difference between both of these two defense mechanisms. And I use the term displace to describe somebody who is not responsible for those negative emotions, which is why it's so destructive. And we see this caused from work environments oftentimes because we have somebody over us in power where we can't really talk back on. And so this often ends up being the result. While it is understandable, it does not make it right at all. Number 8 is intellectualization. This is when somebody takes a feeling and turns it into a thought. So somebody might take their emotions and associate it with something like politics, religion, or even their education in order to justify their stance on something. This can be like being in the middle of an argument, and instead of acknowledging your feelings in the argument, you instead do research on arguments in order to justify why you're being yelled at or why the argument is okay, when you're not even taking acknowledgement of the emotions you are feeling. You're essentially trying to create a justification of why it happened, and this is essentially gaslighting yourself into thinking that you are in the wrong in order to feel like things are more stable and there's no conflict at all. It's essentially procrastination, but backwards. You're instead trying to justify why something happened to you instead of addressing the negative well that is growing inside of you. Number 9 is dissociation. It's a weird dreamlike experience where somebody takes themselves out of reality in the short term. It can be something like, as I've explained in multiple examples, receiving horrible news or witnessing a traumatic event. And this is most common in victims of PTSD. So if you've seen in movies a scene where something traumatic really happens, and the person just stands there without moving, or they kind of freeze up as they're watching what's happening, this is where a person is actively in dissociation. However, what not a lot of people know is that some people actually use this mechanism over and over and over again in order to avoid feeling negative emotions. And And this can actually lead to the controversial multi-personality disorder, which is still debated among scholars as to whether it is truly a disorder or not. And last but not least is sublimation. This is probably the one that I am most guilty of, but it is when you are taking a negative experience and you are turning it into something beautiful. You see this all the time in movies and books, artwork, in almost any kind of creative form you have seen. Sublimation has probably been used in order for authors and artists and filmmakers to guard themselves from difficult thoughts. Now, personally, the most common way I have done this is through my writing, my movies, and my books. Now, when you look at all 10 of these defense mechanisms, you might think that, oh, these are very immature ways of handling very difficult situations, but in reality, 2 of these are more mature than the others, and those 2 are sublimation and suppression. Because while in reality, they still combat hard truths, they still acknowledge that there is that hard truth that is there that people are dealing with. So, for example, in suppression, the person is actively thinking about what is going on in their mind, but they are using the escapism in order to avoid thinking about it. But they at least acknowledge that whatever they are dealing with is in there and that it eventually has to be confronted. In sublimation, people are actively thinking about what happened to them or whatever is going on in the internal conflict and portraying it into something different, either through storytelling or artwork, whatever that may be. There's still acknowledgement of the cognitive dissonance happening. And of course, I eventually had to realize that that was what I was doing. Even though I acknowledged what happened to me, I wasn't actively working on fixing any of the problems that I had going on in my life. And once I actually set the pen down and started actually journaling and exploring a little bit more into my stories of why did I put that there, why would I go this route, why would I go that route, and start to connect the dots of why my writing style is the way it is in some of my things, my life started to get better and I started to understand my stories even a little bit better because I had a better understanding of myself. People who use these 2 defense mechanisms are more likely to work through their problems and live better lives once they have acknowledged the cognitive dissonances that they experience in their daily lives. But in the end, a defense mechanism is a totally normal thing that us as humans use, and that is okay. Sometimes we are afraid of confronting a difficult reality, and that is okay too. I ultimately want this video to be a sign of self-exploration and intuition. If you are confronting your demons from the present and the past and the future, just know that you are doing better than a majority of people, because a lot of people will not even dare to confront any trauma or anything that they've experienced that is negative in the past. A lot of people will just, shove it down, It's annoying. But I encourage you to keep challenging yourself and to keep growing. As a wonderful pastor once said, stay green. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video has been a lot of fun to make, and I try my best to put them together whenever I have time. A lot of times I don't have the time to do it. But if you took something away from this video, feel free to leave a like and comment. I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments. It's always great to have a conversation with somebody about topics of mental health and psychology, especially in today's world, because we don't see a whole lot of those talks going on, especially in older generations. So if you're Gen Z watching, I really appreciate that as a generation, we are able to have that conversation a lot more often than past generations. And it's something I'm really proud of our generation for. And as I've said at the beginning of the video, we are almost to 400 subscribers. So if you have the courage to subscribe to the crazy train, then be sure to subscribe. For those of you who don't know, I am also a filmmaker outside of doing this series. If you are new, I do horror movies, which might sound sick. unsuspected, especially since I'm doing this series, right? I do have lots of videos still planned for the future in this series, as well as other ones outside of the series, such as documentaries and possibly even more movies that I'll be producing. Time will tell. But again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later.